For the ones who work hard to ensure their crew can always go the extra mile, and the ones who get in early so everyone can go home on time, there's Grainger, offering professional-grade supplies backed by product experts so you can quickly and easily find what you need. Plus, you can count on access to a committed team ready to go the extra mile for you. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
I can't contain my excitement. This cannot be true. This just is not real. You know, it's been a week, but it still hasn't quite sunk in. Daniel Ricciardo is going to be back in an AlphaTauri. I never thought about that. I knew for a certain fact that Nick de Vries would be out there, but this, a little bit left field. I think we might say he's a lot hungry for more, isn't he, Kunal? Low-hanging fruit, I know, but sometimes you got to do what you got to do, right? Like the AlphaTauri, very low-hanging fruit for Ricciardo as well, but you have to take it up sometimes.
I should have guessed that you will actually use hungry for more when it came to this weekend's race preview episode. I was wondering what are you going to sort of pun on, and that was, of course, hungry for more. But is AlphaTauri really a low-hanging fruit for Daniel Ricciardo? Because when I was making some notes of talking of Ricciardo, yes, he's back. We know the whole thing that they want to put Perez under pressure. They want to give Ricciardo the chance to shine. They want to test Yuki Tsunoda and give him a reference point. But when or where will Daniel Ricciardo qualify this weekend? And I actually wrote down in my predictions, he's going to be out of Q1. Oh, that's my prediction.
Come on. Please, please, please don't be a sadist to every single one listening. Nobody wants to hear that. Come on. But hey, Sundaram, is AlphaTauri has to be the lowest of the low-hanging fruits, right? Like if you're P10, how low can the low-hanging fruit be? And I feel like, although I hate to say or hear what Kunal has just said, he might have a sense of sensibility in that point.
I mean, I'm sure Nick de Vries is not in AlphaTauri anymore, and it's nice to have that sort of a character in Formula One once again. But to be very honest, I think we've seen Ricciardo struggling a fair bit with McLaren as well. Now he's just going to struggle with an AlphaTauri. It's more different.
Here we go. Here's every single one of our listeners that make us the top 1.5% of all podcasts in the world leaving in a second. That's it. They're gone. Right?
They're like, you guys don't deserve more listens for this episode. But, I'm going to just pick on what Sundaram said. Imagine, at the moment, Lando Norris kicked Daniel Ricciardo into retirement. I really hope it doesn't end up being Yuki Tsunoda who kicks him into a second retirement sabbatical, whatever you call it. I really hope. I mean, I know Japan is a very small listener base, so I can't say this, but it's a bit more embarrassing if it's Yuki Tsunoda who's sort of, been the reason why you couldn't do what you could do at AlphaTauri. I mean, right now, everyone is dreaming Ricciardo and Red Bull Racing in 25, but that is so distant in the future.
Is it really though, Sundaram? Because Sergio Perez, the way he's performing, all the spotlight, apart from P18, P19, where we expect Ricciardo to realistically be, the spotlight will be on him and Sergio Perez, because that's the biggest comparison we're all looking for. And qualifying records, as you pointed out in all of your stats so far, that doesn't really look very good for Sergio, does it?
Oh, it really doesn't. But I really think the whole plan with Daniel Ricciardo, I mean, to be on a very serious note, the plan with Ricciardo is really multi-layered and long-term. There's the other rumors doing the rounds that Yuki Tsunoda might move to Aston Martin in 2026 because Aston Martin is partnering up with Honda. So maybe Yuki is not there in the long-term plans of Red Bull, and Red Bull really don't need a number one driver at this point of time because they have Max tied down till 2028. So what they're really looking forward to is a strong number two driver who gives them a lot of options on race day. And we've seen the sort of camaraderie or the sort of friendship that Ricciardo or partnership that Ricciardo and Verstappen are able to have on track. And that's something that they're really missing right now. So I think Ricciardo at some point of time is going to be in that Red Bull seat. Maybe 2024 if Perez is qualifying or race performances continue the way they're going, and they would really like. I mean, even Ricardo's in that stage of his life where he's probably happy to be in a front running car maybe at some point of time, and he wouldn't really mind being the number two driver. You also have to remember that he probably rejected a lot of other teams further down in the grid last year. So what really is his incentive of joining Alpha Tauri this year, unless there is some talk to be back in Red Bull at a later date?
I think the incentive is very, very clear. He gets to compete against a driver who's beaten Max Verstappen in equal machinery twice in 2023. That's Yuki Tsunoda, my friends. He's the only man who's done it so far, not Sergio. But hey,
you need to give some context. On that.
The monster truck races and a couple of other weird vehicles. But it's okay. He beat Max Verstappen in equal machinery. It's important, remember. But this, folks, is the Inside Line F1 podcast. Welcome along. We're one of the world's top 1.5% of all podcasts. And my name is Somal Arora. I'm the host of the Indian Racing League on Star Sports. And the two voices you hear alongside me. Firstly, the last voice you heard, F1 Stats Guru Sundaram. He is, again, a part of the WTF1 talent roster, and his stats have been read out by Crofty on the Sky F1 broadcast so many times I've actually lost count. Also, the other voice that you heard at the very beginning, and the next voice you are going to hear after me, Kunal Shah, the former marketing head of the Sahara Force India Formula One team, now working as a motorsport and Formula One consultant at the Viaplay network in Norway, but he's also on camera sometimes to talk about Formula One and to explain it to all the people. So, let's get to Formula One and let's get to Hungary, Kunal, because in the last few weeks, you've spoken a lot about qualifying on air in Norway, and you've spoken a lot about gaps and how it's such an important thing to nail down. This weekend, more than anything, qualifying has to be super tricky because we've seen great battles at Hungary, but only very few people can get past, notably Fernando Alonso.
Notably Fernando Alonso. And, when we talk of Hungary, that Ocon win that happened in 2021 will be remembered more for what Fernando Alonso did to hold up Lewis Hamilton, right? But Hungary, great circuit. You're going to hear a lot of drivers say things like it feels like a go-kart track you're driving on. Some of the engineers will say this is like Monaco, but without the walls. What that really means is that the setup and the downforce requirements at Hungary are very, very similar to Monaco. Passing is very difficult, which is what I sort of like. Our regular listeners would know that for me, the battle on track is more important than an actual overtake. But I realize that I'm probably from an older era of Formula One when I wish for that. But it is a beautiful circuit by itself. It's the 38th year that we're going to have a race in Hungary, which I think is pretty fantastic. And, guys, we're still trying to get Zsolt Baumgartner, the only Hungarian Grand Prix driver ever, as a guest on our podcast. So hopefully he gets there soon enough. We were trying to get him for this episode. Didn't happen. We'll see when we get him next.
Well, it's a fun way to manifest, isn't it, Sundaram?
I hope that does happen. I mean, coincidentally, I was speaking about Zsolt Baumgartner to one of my colleagues recently at work. But I actually want to do a little rewind to last year's Hungarian Grand Prix. And I want to know if you can, I hope you remember what happened last year, but I want to know what your favorite moments from last year's race were. I'm just going to read out a few just so that it's easy to remember. So Verstappen spinning out on his way to winning the race from 10th on the grid.
Correct.
Was it George Russell's pole position? Ferrari's comical strategy to move on to hards?
Yep.
Or was it something else?
What else happened last year? No, Hamilton starting alone was 21. Verstappen spinning and winning was definitely... Wait, what else are we missing here, Kunal? Are we?
You're definitely missing something. Think Williams. Think Williams.
Now this is where,
Last...
Williams, Nicolas Latifi, was it?
Yes, that was the last...
Gotifi, did he do something?
Gotifi was...
the last time he scored a point.
The last time he scored a point, yes.
No,
no.
The specific
FP3,
one.
FP3.
No?
Nicholas Latifi topped FP3. Yes.
He topped FP3.
Oh, goodness.
Wow.
What a thing to celebrate.
He topped FP3 only to be eliminated in Q1. I'm pretty sure of that stat.
Yes. Yes. He didn't score points, but yes, he topped FP3.
But, the Hungary has had 3 different race winners from 3 different teams in the last 3 years. We had Verstappen in 22. By the way, he started 8th at that time. We had Ocon in 21. I think he started 10th or something. And there was that famous race where Lewis was the only driver taking the start. And then in 2020, we had Lewis Hamilton, which makes it three different drivers for three different teams. So will it be McLaren this weekend? That's what everybody's been talking about. And, third of their third upgrade is, they said they're going to have their upgrades over 3 races, McLaren. This is the third race. Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris have both said that these upgrades solve only 30% of our weaknesses. 70% are still to go. But all eyes on them. Can they legitimately join the battle for P2 at a track whose characteristics are so different from Austria and Silverstone, the last 2 races that we had?
Yeah, and that'll be interesting, right? Because I remember talking about this in our British GP review, Sundaram, about how Hungary will be the biggest test. And we went on about it quite a fair bit, about how McLaren have actually nailed a couple of really different types of circuits in the last couple of races. Austria being one with really long straights and slow corners. The UK being a circuit with, again, lots of high-speed corners and a couple of really quick straights that come up and then follow along with a lot of high-speed corners. But this one will be a tricky challenge because there are tons of low to medium speed corners. And realistically, McLaren have been very out there in saying that, okay, our straight line speed isn't quite what makes us the best. And Hungary only has one proper long straight. I think it's around 700 odd meters, if I'm not mistaken. I think it once used to be one of the longest straights in F1, but that's like 100 odd years ago. But the point being, these corners right here, the second and the third sector that we have at the Hungarian GP circuit, that will be a true test of McLaren. And the way things function all the way through in the race will be such an interesting thing to decode. And I wonder how good Aston Martin here is as well, because they are now meant to be good at these high to medium speed corners. And then suddenly all the other teams have caught up and then their pace just sort of looks mediocre. This weekend will answer so many questions that we've had in our head. And that, for me, makes it such an exciting Sunday, because not only will we get to know more about Ricciardo, not only will we get to know more about how can Sergio Perez climb back up from another Q2 qualifying position, but also so much more on just who really is all the way through from P3 to, P15. It's that big of a mixed up grid.
Absolutely right. This weekend is going to answer a lot of questions, especially from Daniel Ricciardo's point of view, from Sergio Perez's point of view. Will he finally get over his qualifying troubles? And if McLaren really has a very quick car, Hungary is a different challenge altogether. It's a different circuit. But it'll also answer if Aston Martin are a team who are still in the fight for second position. Because if you remember, before Monaco, we were considering Monaco and Hungary as one of the prime circuits for Fernando Alonso to get his 33rd race win, and everything's pretty much gone silent. So if this weekend they struggle, then things look very, very difficult for Aston Martin and Fernando.
Mission 33, yes.
Mission 33, yes, Mission 33 is definitely on, but I wouldn't say it's very optimistic at this time. On paper, probably this circuit does kind of favor Aston Martin, but I think we'll only get to know closer to qualifying.
Well, on paper,
you know what? On paper. Sorry, Soumil. I have to say this on paper. And if you go back, I said Monaco without walls. I'm sure you guys remember what happened in qualifying in Monaco. Fernando Alonso, first it was Ocon who took provisional pole. Alonso almost just narrowly beat him. And then less than a tenth was Max Verstappen in the wall, literally. We had 3 different teams in the top 3 in qualifying. And will Saturday turn out to be more exciting in Hungary than Sunday, for example? I'm excited to see. And, when Fernando is sort of right now feeling a little low with whatever the kind of circuits that have gone and upgrades, etc., coming in, could he be in contention for something at the front row? Because this whole low to medium speed corners works so well for Aston Martin. I'd love to see what they're able to do.
I think we also have a little bit of rain forecast this weekend.
Again, who's been doing the rain dance? Because there's been, I think, pretty much every race, there's something or the other that's coming up with, I don't mind the rain dance, but the last 4 races, Soumil, have seen 4 different teams be second fastest. McLaren was the new one added to the list.
Yep.
I think now finally there'll be a repeat. I don't think outside Ferrari, Mercedes and McLaren, and who did I miss? Aston Martin, I don't think there's a fifth team unless Williams suddenly springs a surprise and says, guys, guess what? We are now back in the mix. This new tire construction is working to our advantage or something. But yeah, like you guys are saying, lots of questions that will be answered this weekend.
Guys, if it ends up being Williams this weekend, who is the second fastest team, I'm just not going to continue doing the podcast for a couple of weeks because I'll need to digest that for 2 weeks at least before saying anything at all. Now, that's not going to happen. No chance. But it'll be fun to watch how it eventually goes about. And it'll be fun to watch it together if you're in Mumbai because we're doing another live event for, again, the Hungarian GP at Warsaw Social. Now, that's near Andheri. Again, very accessible by the metro as well. And in case you want to join us, you can check out the link in the description. And you would want to because there is going to be a really fun pre- and post-race show that we can engage and interact about the race together. And as always, a Formula One quiz prepared by F1 stats guru himself. So let's hope it's a really fun race on Sunday. But I think, honestly, Sundaram, we should also start to make, rather curate these events for Saturday as well. Because these days, qualifyings have been super interesting. And I know at the start we mentioned about Sergio Perez, about where he will qualify. I think this has to be one of the best qualifying sessions of the entire year for two reasons. Firstly, the grid has been so well bunched up. I think it's been a couple of times, at least 3-4 odd times where we've seen the grid in under 1 second of the overall pole time. That firstly is mind-blowing considering where the gaps were at the start of last season. But also the fact is in Hungary, it is that extra bit vital. So a certain number of drivers might be pushing that much harder because we all know that not everyone is Fernando Alonso and not everyone can pass around the outside of turn 3. It's just not possible for everyone.
Oh, absolutely. Qualifying once again is going to be very exciting to see. And I think in the recent seasons, if you compare the recent seasons, this year's qualifying has been very much more closely fought amongst many drivers in that sense. There was also Lando last time out. So I'm very excited to see what happens in qualifying. The sort of characteristics of the Hungaroring also kind of tip it in that favor. So Saturday is going to be very exciting to see what happens. But what I'm also very interested to see is the fact that we're going to have car numbers 1, 2, 3, 4 on the grid once again for the first time in the hybrid era. So one is Verstappen.
Oh, yes.
Good point.
Any guesses when that last happened?
1, 2, 3, 4. Let me think. Okay, that must have been 2013.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. The last race of 2013, because back then number 1 was Vettel, number 2 was Webber, number 3 was Alonso, and number 4 was Felipe Massa.
Wait, so you're making it clear, right?
Wow.
Webber was number 2, not in the team dynamic, but just in the car number sense, yes?
Yes, race number, yes.
Okay, good to know. Very nice. That's a crazy one, isn't it? It's been what, 10 odd years since that happened?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And that's not the only real change, is it? Because in qualifying, we're also now having a pseudo new format, aren't we?
Yes, there is the they're going to use hard for Q1, mediums for Q2, softs for Q3. Formula One's doing all these. They want to keep changing these things. This time they say we're going to test if we can actually reduce the overall number of tires used, number of sets used during a weekend, make it more sustainable, etc., etc. So it's not down to entertainment for once, but this is where Checo Perez is like, my goodness, guys, you guys are only going to make it tougher for me. I mean, imagine there is just one qualifying session this weekend, which will have this alternative tire allocation. That's what Formula One calls. I love these Formula One abbreviations. This one reads ATA or ATA. So my daughter is very excited because that's her nickname. And this is now called the ATA qualifying session that we will have on Saturday.
Not bad.
From what I see, there's a little bit of rain forecast for Saturday as well. So Sergio Perez is really going to be questioning, why does it have to be me always?
Like that Mario Balotelli t-shirt as well. Like when he scored one goal, he just pulled his head up and said, why always me? No, but even if it is dry, I think realistically, this is the one last thing that we should discuss, that it's just going to be tougher for a driver like Sergio Perez who's lost on confidence, or even someone like Daniel Ricciardo, because now you've got to set your first lap on hards. And the way things are, some teams are just not able to get some tires worked up. That just normally happens. That, again, we are able to see It's a really tricky trend that you can't really comment on who exactly favors what, but we are going to discover this in qualifying because normally since everyone uses softs, it becomes very easy to check what the qualifying pace is. But now that some teams will have to go for hard and mediums, we'll also figure out, okay, can a certain team, like for instance, can a Williams really warm up their hard tires well enough to get out of Q1? Because on the soft, they might have genuine Q, like let's say Q2 pace, but they just might not be there with the hard compound tires. And so the grid might be artificially arranged in a way that isn't representative of the proper qualifying pace, Sundaram.
Oh, absolutely. And that also kind of takes us back to what happened at the British Grand Prix. McLaren were able to switch on their hard tires more quickly than Lewis Hamilton was probably able to extract from his soft tires. So every team has a different level of degradation or warming up. And that's going to be very interesting to see if teams like Williams can get out of a Q1 or even Haas can get out of Q1. So in that sense, it's going to be quite interesting to see what pans out during qualifying. But I also have to mention that there's going to be special focus on Max Verstappen this time out because he's won the last 5 races from pole position. And if he takes pole this time, that's going to be his 6th consecutive pole. And if he wins it, it's going to level the all-time record for most consecutive wins from pole, which was done by Michael Schumacher in the early 2000s. 6.
Wow.
Ridiculous.
The driver with most poles here is Lewis Hamilton. He's got 8 poles. Of course, Max's 6 poles have come across 6 different circuits. But these kind of numbers are just staggering in every way. It's like you get a dominant car, you hit another gear, you're in a different mental zone, and all you do is go in and out and perform. And what I love is, different conditions, different rivals, different situations, different characteristics. And Max in that Red Bull is able to come up strong, come up ahead compared to everybody else. And, we also spoke of, you guys explained very well of how qualifying order might not be representative of actual pace. What this also does, this whole alternative tire allocation, in my view, is limits race strategy because you are forcing teams and drivers to use certain sets at certain times, which then means that when you go into the race, you have limited tires to choose from when it comes to wanting to use alternative strategies. But I'm guessing, Formula One will keep testing these formats and try and find a way and give us something better along the way. But qualifying predictions. I'm not going to make a race prediction. We know what it is. My qualifying prediction, and this is a dichotomy.
Uh-huh.
Okay, if Daniel Ricciardo exits in Q1, but exits ahead of Yuki Tsunoda, is that a win? I mean, is that like a bittersweet moment or what? So he's beaten Yuki in qualifying, which is what Red Bull would want. But hey, he's out of Q1.
I think it's good, isn't it? It's a start, is it not?
A start of more Q1 eliminations, maybe. I don't know.
Daniel has at least been honest in saying that the Alpha Tauri has its limitations. And I read the first comment underneath that video on YouTube, and the one person, I don't know who their name was, but if you're listening to this, my friend, you've nailed it. He said, that's the biggest understatement that you could possibly give in all of Formula One, that the Alpha Tauri has limitations. It's going to be interesting. I think I hate to say this, but I also feel that it's going to be a Ricciardo Q1 exit. But more importantly, guys, where do we think Sergio Perez qualifies? Because I think with the new format and Sergio Perez's existing problems, if it's dry, I don't think he's going beyond Q2. What do you think, Sundaram?
I'm making a very bold prediction this time. He makes it into Q3.
Yay!
He makes it into Q3.
Well done, my friend.
Okay, why don't I top it up? He will be on pole and he will win this race from pole. So Red Bull will get 12 races on the trot, that win record of McLaren. They've won, 20 out of the last 21 races. That's the kind of crazy numbers they're coming up with. But, another Twitter handle actually did this comparison. Biggest points differences between F1 teammates after 10 rounds since 2010. And in the top 5 rankings there, the second ranking was Verstappen Perez, 99 points, which is this season. Third was Alonso Stroll, which is 93 points, again, this season. So, I don't know. Just using numbers, is Stroll as good as Checo Perez, or has Perez had as bad a season as Lance Stroll?
I think he's better. I think he really is better because he's allowing Fernando Alonso to open up a new side of himself. You see, that's what the best teammates are there for. They enable the others to be better human beings and better people. And so he's opening up this mentor side of Fernando Alonso. I think you have to look at it from a bigger human perspective, Kunal. Now, don't judge Lance Stroll on just the racing. It's more about what happens off the track. Understand the bigger picture, my friend. And that's all the banter and bullshit we're going to do
Wow.
today. No, but
And the banter and bullshit we'll do on Sunday. I would love to be there this Sunday, but I'm not there this Sunday. I will be there next Sunday. I will be at our race screening for Spa, but more on that later. Right now, all eyes on Hungary.
yes, indeed, folks. So if you are in Mumbai, again, check out the link in the description of this episode to know how you can join us for our Hungarian GP F1 pit stop, where there's just so much more than just a proper race screening as well. Well, that's been us from the Inside Line F1 podcast. We'll be back with the Hungarian GP review on Monday. And also, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast and share it with any friends or family members who might enjoy this. See you on Sunday, folks, if you're in Mumbai. And if you're just listening and watching along across the globe, see you on Monday. Bye-bye.
Text us to receive up to 5 automated marketing texts to your number. Consent to receive marketing text not required. Message and data rates may apply.
You want to lose weight and get in shape, but every time you try, it only lasts a couple weeks. Well, look, it's not your fault because it's super hard. I'm Carl, the founder of Body. That's Body with an I. And here's a secret. Most fitness and diet programs don't work long-term because they aren't designed to fit into your life long-term. That's why I created the world's first health esteem app. And I want you to text me to try it free for 14 days. Body shows you how to enjoy your life while you get healthy and lose weight. Sound too good to be true? Don't say that to our millions of happy members. The next 500 people to text me the word health to 303030 can try Body for free for 2 weeks or get 50% off a paid membership. Text health to 303030. It's gonna work. But first, you need to be one of the next 500 people to text health to 303030.